Channel This Green's Life. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. So, what's my question or message for today? I want to follow up with what I spoke about in my last video. I was talking about whether or not, um, you know, is it possible for you to relocate if you have a family? But I'm not going to talk about relocation today per se. I want to talk about us being mindful of something. Now, I know amongst Black people in particular, and I'm not saying this is not white people as well, but Black people in particular, we are very much into this, creating generational wealth. And this is born out of, people have said in the past that it seems like when we have children, they always have to start from like ground zero. So, Black people, modern generations are really much into creating quote unquote generational wealth. That could be, just maybe creating a business or buying real estate, something that they can pass on to their children. And I wanted to say today that I want us to be mindful of getting on this train. And I'm going to tell you why. I think it's a very good idea. I think it's an excellent mindset to have, to want to create generational wealth and start things and lay a foundation for our children so that they don't have to start from ground zero. But what I want you to keep in mind, and I wanted to talk about this specifically today, is what if they don't want to continue what you started, right? What happens then? Because you are putting like all your resources, your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something in hopes that your children will pick up, the baton and move on going forward, and hopefully this is something that can go on for generations. And again, I think that's very noble, and I think it's a great idea, but then you have to be careful of whether or not they are all in on your plan. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because, as everyone knows, I'm living here in Grenada, right? You have no idea how many abandoned houses there are in Grenada. Like, you could tell either they started them and they never got to complete them, or they've gone a good way and they're just abandoned. Because what's happening is a lot of people may have lived overseas, they gathered, X amount of resources, and they decided to come home and build this house, and a big house too. Some people have some big houses in the Caribbean because, you get a lot of land here. So you could really ball out if you want to, right? Build this big, beautiful house. And then they're in their mind, they're thinking, well, I have children and I have grandchildren, so I'm going to make this big house. And then what happens? They pass away, or they get ill and they have to come back to America, England, Canada, wherever. And the kids never come here. They never return because they probably already have their own houses or lives or whatever. And the parent really thought that they were doing something good in saying, you know what, I'm going to build this house because I want my kids to have this thing. And then they're not even interested. So we got loads of abandoned properties here because of that same thing. I know for myself personally, when I bought my house in America, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm going to buy this house, and then this is something that I'm going to pass on to my children. And when I was thinking about moving or relocating rather, I sat my kids down and I said, okay, well, what should we do? Should we keep the property? And because I'm in my mind, I'm thinking like, when I say to them, look, I'm leaving, somebody's going to say, well, I'll come live there, or, let's rent it out or whatever. And, we'll just keep it, for as a resource, or, for later on, as an asset for later on. And both of them looked at me and said, hey, I don't want that house. So imagine you really think you're doing something to move the family forward, and sometimes your kids are not on board. So this is a quick message just for today, because I just wanted to just mention that it is a beautiful thing for you to be thinking, for your future and the future of your children. So when you leave here, they will have something. But my advice to you is to check in on your kids first before you go and do all of these grand things, because you, in your mind, because it makes sense to you, right? Of course it makes sense to us that, hey, we're gonna buy this thing or start this business, and the kids will just take it over when we're gone. And a good chunk of the time they're not interested. They have their own lives, they have their own things that they're chasing, their own things that they want to do, that may not be in an alignment with what you're thinking. And then you go work yourself to death, and then they don't want any part of it. So I just want us to be mindful. Maybe it's better to leave our children money. Just say, okay, I saved this amount of money, or I bought this property or whatever. I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to give everybody their own money for them to go do what they want to do. Maybe that might be the better thing to do than for you to go and put all your blood, sweat, and tears into something that the children are not even interested in taking part in. So I just wanted to leave that quick message for you today, that just because you think something is the best idea in the world, and oftentimes it is. Because you got to think, when you were younger, man, let me tell you something. I had so many opportunities when I was younger. When I think back, I can kick myself, because my dad, he owned apartment buildings, all kinds of things. Like, I should have been involved in all of that, and hindsight is always 2020, right? Financially, I should have been way more ahead than I am today. But I'm young, I want to do my own thing. We always just want to do our own thing. We don't want to be entangled with our parents. Some of us are smart enough to jump on that, and some of us aren't, right? I was one of the people that was not. The only reason why I was saved a little bit is because, like I said, when my mom said, "Hey, come with me and come buy this house in Grenada," I said, "Okay." But like I said, even when I purchased the house with her, I wasn't thinking about coming here. Like I said, if my dad didn't say, "Hey, you got a house in Grenada, go look about it," this house probably would have fell to the ground. This house is still in need of repair because it was neglected for a long time. So I'm here just doing little bits at a time to get it, it's for the most part it's comfortable, but it still needs a lot of work. But had I been thinking, about it, I would have done something about this a long time ago. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. So please just be careful about, what you're doing. Like, the blood, sweat, and tears. Like, is it going to be worth it at the end? Are your children really going to take that baton and move whatever you're doing forward? Because you might be working in vain, and I don't want you to. What I want you to do is, have a discussion with them. And like I said, your best bet might just be to just give them some money. I'm telling you. So you could take the time to focus on yourself, go travel, go live somewhere, like whatever you want to do. Like, please be careful about doing this generational wealth. Be careful. Make sure that they're on board with what you got going on. Okay. Just a thought, something to think about. Okay. Have a good one.